Yay. Hey y'all, thanks so much for being here. So it's nice to see familiar faces, and thanks Dennis for all your advice and support, and Teresa, Bill for helping install. And so I'm just going to kind of walk through the pieces, and I'll hopefully kind of tell you the story of kind of what I was thinking as I was making pieces. So the piece that, if you haven't seen it, there's a piece that's in the vault, and that's kind of the precursor of the pieces in this room. And when I started to make it, I started to make body parts out of kind of fragments and fill them with growth. And that was during COVID. And kind of actually at the same time, I was, without kind of realizing it, how it was connected, I was also making my father's urn. And so that led to really kind of thinking about wanting to make an entire body. And so I didn't start doing that until I had was asked to do a piece for a place in Houston called the Silos, which are these unrefurbished grain silos. So they're dark and dirty and kind of feel tomb-like. And so that's where that piece it was initially. But I thought it was really nice for it to be in the vault here because it has a similar idea of tombness and darkness. And so in some ways it's my body, but it's also your body and it's everybody's body. And it's really kind of this idea that, we are intrinsically tied to the earth, whether we come out of it and we go back to it, and whether we care for the earth or are indifferent or don't care, we're ultimately kind of connected. And so that piece kind of segues a little into this newer work, which this newer work is kind of informed, thinking about how to make new work when it feels like when we're surrounded by so much difficult things, whether it's suffering of human beings, dehumanization, genocide, seeing kind of disasters that happen, whether it's to us or we're watching it happen like in North Carolina. And so I started, instead of making new work, kind of turning back to work that I had made starting in 2016. And so a lot of pieces are parts and pieces of installations. And so they're really easy to kind of take apart. And so it started with the piece that's on the back wall that's called The Weight of Accumulation. And so that's all entirely made out of old pieces. And so the sheets that are stacked are from a bed that I had made, like a full-size bed, and they're translucent sheets. And so it was like a lit bed. And so I just started stacking the pieces, kind of filling them with bits and pieces from other elements or other works. And it was kind of definitely experimentation because, I would stack and it would be, say, the tallest one was quite tall. It was maybe like 20 inches, but once it would get fired, it would sink and kind of collapse in some ways. And so that was like a nice, experiment. Is it going to topple? Is it going to stick together? What's going to happen? And so in some ways, those pieces are very much about this idea of accumulating, the way we're supposed to consume and kind of define ourselves through consumption, and that in some ways is a weight. And then also in my own personal life, just having these boxes of pieces that are going to exist in boxes, or am I going to be able to kind of let them go, either transform them or just really let them go, and having that kind of weight lifted. And so then those kind of kind of moved into these little, what I call kind of these cauldron forms. And so I made those pieces those are new, but what's inside of them is kind of comprised of probably 5 or 6 different pieces or elements from larger pieces. And so I would like reglaze them, I would break them, I would make little arches, and knowing that the arches would fall, and then I would put them in the kiln and it would just kind of fall. And it was sometimes not good or it didn't look good, and sometimes it was like a magic. And so they probably got fired 2 or 3 times. And because I would kind of change the color, or I would add elements and kind of see what happened, like when it would collapse again. And then the pieces behind here are more new, like newer, have more newer elements. And so I call them fungi shelves in my brain, or, as I'm thinking about them. And so the shelves themselves are new, and then they're holding these kind of remnants that are from unused remnants from another piece. And in some ways, these remnants I start to think of as kind of remnants of us, whether it's remains or like remnants of infrastructure, and just kind of the way that the earth will hold that. And whether humanity, kind of exists, also the persistence of life, and that it is kind of this unstoppable force within earth. And then lastly are the kind of vessels here behind. And those were kind of an experiment, really just playing with material. So I was really enjoying this process of pinching, and it's kind of a difficult material. It's this porcelain. When it gets really thin, it's translucent, and it likes to tear and it likes to break. And I was really enjoying that kind of imperfection and breaking and struggle and accepting it. And I was also thinking of them as vessels always, and as kind of human-like or organs. But it wasn't really until I started to kind of think about glazing. I was kind of wanting pinks and reds, and I was like, oh, these are hearts. I didn't realize that. And so to me, they kind of express a very thing I'm thinking about now, or trying to figure out kind of after the election, which for me feels devastating. And this idea that we are all in this, we're all interlinked no matter what, and we're all in it together. And how do we find our way back from this division? And it has to be somehow through this vulnerability and humanity that hopefully most of us have. And I don't know the answer, but that's just what I'm thinking about. So yeah, a lot of this, especially the newer work, has really been about play and experimenting, but also kind of loss, letting go, and change. So yeah, that's it. But I'm happy to answer questions if. Well, so like the cauldron piece that gets bisque fired. I'm getting like technical now with ceramics, but and then I have all these parts and pieces that are already glazed and bisque fired because they've been part of other pieces. And so then I glaze them differently, reglaze, and then I kind of pile them all together and then put the whole thing in the kiln. I mean, you know, in the sense of it's not going to totally change, but there's going to be things that maybe sometimes fall, like especially the arches. With those little cage-like forms, I would build arches, and I know that's not going to stay. Or the long, kind of pointy, spiny things, they will move because they're so thin because of the heat. But yeah, so it's not an utter surprise, but there's still surprises. Yeah.
Thank you,
All
Jessica.
right, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.